All right, welcome everybody. My name is Jason Bradshaw. I am the chapter president of the Huntsville chapter of BDPA. Today, we are hosting an event, another one of our Level Up series events called Developing a Professional Presence by Growing Your Brand. And if you're not familiar with BDPA, BDPA is the Black Data Processing Associates. We are a 46-year-old organization that is that was founded with the mindset of bringing minorities into the technology fields. And let me pause for a moment and just I want to ask you all for your thoughts and prayers. As we found out today our founder is in the hospital. So if you can just send some thoughts and prayers for Mr. Earl Page Jr. As he's in the hospital. So. But today, our four panelists are all personal mentors of mine. They've all coached me in some shape, form, or fashion. So I feel like they are going to give you all great insights on how to develop your professional presence. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Val, who's going to introduce our panelists for today, and then turn it over to John Greer, our moderator. All right, Val.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining. I can't see everyone on the screen, so I think we're all here though. All right, so we'll get started. So first up is Mr. Kent Ballard Jr., excuse me. He is the Assistant Dean for Student Success at J.F. Drake State Community and Technical College. Mr. Ballard was recently hired as the Assistant Dean of Student Services at Drake State. He is a career educator with over 16 years of educational experiences, from directing elementary age programs to college administration. He also has an intense passion for empowering students and supporting fellow educators. Mr. Ballard has obtained a master's degree in education and specialized in urban and diverse learners, excuse me. He is married to Dr. Rachel Ballard, the Director of Equity and Innovation for Madison County Public Schools, and they have 3 amazing sons. And I'm going to pause right here because I don't know if you can hear my dog squeaking a toy in the background, but I'm going to take those away. Okay, I think she's good now. All right, next slide, please. Okay, next up we have Miss Jania Brown. I hope, am I saying your name right, first of all?
Joneia.
Jania, yeah.
Jania, okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Miss Jania Brown. She is a native of Ottaville, Alabama, and a graduate of the University of Alabama at Birmingham. She holds a Bachelor's of Science in Psychology, and she is a graduate of Walden University with a Master's of Science in Psychology. She is an award-winning nonfiction and fiction filmmaker, screenwriter, author, journalist, motivational speaker, spoken word artist, and poet. Wow. She is currently the change manager at FTI Incorporated, and she also volunteers with several nonprofit programs as a mentor to girls ages 12 to 18 years. Thank you for joining us. Next up, we have Ms. Rejena Harris, who is a healthcare executive and an entrepreneur. Ms. Harris is a seasoned healthcare executive, multifaceted entrepreneur, and creative spirit motivated by her ability to connect and inspire others to a higher purpose. She has over 20 years of progressive leadership experience and expertise in business strategy, operational improvement, and finance. She has also held various leadership roles within highly rated national healthcare organizations, to include the Chief Operations Officer of Parallon, I can't talk today, HCA, the COO of MedRx, the Senior Director at Sutter Health, and most recently, the Regional Director at Kaiser Permanente. Prior to her corporate career, Ms. Harris was president of Harris Healthcare Group, LLC, where she spent more than 10 years advising health systems providers, private equity companies, and healthcare tech companies on the strategies to achieve growth and improve performance. Her current creative and entrepreneurial project is the upcoming launch of Echelon Communications in September of 2021, an organization that will bring like-minded, next-level focused professionals and entrepreneurs together through unique networking, social, and professional development opportunities. Ms. Harris resides in Brentwood, Tennessee. Thank you. Next up, we have Miss Felicia Jones, who is the Senior Engineering Manager. That's a word I should really be able to say. So I'm an engineer, but today apparently I can't talk. Senior Engineering Manager at Mailchimp. She is a U.S. Army veteran and experienced senior technology professional with over 20 years of diverse experience in leadership roles focused on implementations and technical solutions while enabling strategic capabilities. She is the former BDPA South Regional Vice President and the President of the BDPA Atlanta Chapter, a mentor of many who understands the value of people and their contributions. Thank you to all our panelists for joining us today. And our moderator will be Mr. John Greer Jr., who is a Senior Assistant Administrator for SAIC. John is a native of Jackson, Mississippi. He graduated with a bachelor's degree in information technology, information TS from Mississippi State University. And again, he currently works as a Senior Systems Administrator for SAIC on Redstone Arsenal. Turn it over to you, John.
All right. Thank you, Val, for those introductions. Appreciate that. And yes, it is a degree in information technology services. So thank you to our distinguished panelists that are here and all our guests that are tuned in. I'm hoping we're having a great session tonight. I feel like we are. We have a wonderful list of people here to give their life experiences on different questions about branding. So we'll go ahead and get this thing started. First question of tonight, the most obvious question: why is branding so important? Anybody can pick it up, anybody who wants to answer first.
I guess I can kick it
All right,
off.
Felicia. All right.
So branding is very important because it helps to set you apart from everyone else. You get to actually, kind of define and tell people who you are and, basically what you can do to help and enable them and what you are also known for as well. That's why branding is so important, and it's so important that you're able to identify that and go ahead and define it early, because that brand will be everlasting, right? Sometimes you need to update it as you go through and you grow yourself, your career, or whatever you may be doing at that time, and you can update your branding. But basically, it's going to be the one thing that sets you apart from others.
Awesome. Thank you for that. All right. Anybody else?
I don't mind jumping in. Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. It is your initial handshake. Your brand is really who you are. So as you make that first impression, as you are able to deliver your information, whether that's your 30-second elevator speech, your pitch, who you are, where you want to go, why it's going to be important for you to, why someone needs to know who you are and what would help them to remember you. It is that first handshake, and it is a very important part of our personhood. I don't know that it's taught enough in schools. I don't know that it's really talked about. It's talked about all the time in media and things of that nature, but I don't know that it's absolutely been applied. So I love opportunities like this to really talk about it and really move forward on that front end of brand development, even as a person is developing. So it's a really good comment, or really good, really good conversation to have, not a comment.
All right. Thank you for that, Kent. All right. Ladies, Jania, would you like to speak on it?
Sure. Branding is important because I don't even say branding that much to people anymore. I say relationship building. Branding at the end of the day is building a relationship with your customer, client, or constituents. And so, you know, what, like everyone else said, is letting people know who, what, how you are. So at the end of the day, if you have a problem with relationship building, you're going to have a problem with consistent branding. So that's some of the things that, you know, I think that we have to kind of harken back and, you know, like Mr. Ballard said, is not taught very much or very often, because the crux of branding has to do with how you wager your relationships with people. And that's something that I think in our community we have a hard time separating, you know, personal, professional relationships, and that, you know, affects our ability to have a great and successful brand. So I think it's you know, extremely important.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Rejena.
I think I want to say, in regards to branding, it's an opportunity for you to tell people who you are, and not them for them to tell you who you should be. And one of the things I also think is very important to branding is, I think one of the panelists mentioned that it changes over time. So with that, you have to develop a personal strategy for yourself that will over time improve your brand. And as you change, as you grow, as you develop, your brand changes, grows, and develops. But it still is an opportunity for you to define who you are and not let someone else define who you are. And then what sets you apart? How are you unique? What's your uniqueness? And what do you bring to the table? So that's, I think, from a personal perspective, that's what I would say about branding.
All right, thank you. All those were very great. So branding is pretty much important because it technically defines who you are, what you're about, and lets people know what your intentions and plans on doing. And that's why it's so important. So great. Thank you for that info. With that being said, so what are some of the benefits from creating a brand?
I think what we just answered before,
Yep.
it does that. Basically sets you apart from everyone else, like you're saying, your uniqueness and stuff. Also, it also let others know basically what they can rely on you for. And also, and I'm sorry, there's a distraction. A bird went by. I apologize. And also, you know, what you're known for, what you can be relied on for, and what they can come to you for. But it basically goes with the same answers that we said as to why branding is so important.
I would definitely communicate the same. As I really pull back to think about the importance of a brand or the importance of creating a brand, I really processed and thought about the thought process that you have to go through in order to develop your brand, right? You got to really think about what you are presenting and what you want to present. So as you are really developing your brand, you really have to develop, you have to be conscious about where you are and where you want to go. So those who are sloppily, you know, who kind of throw together, you know, their brand, or they're not thinking about every day I walk out, I'm representing my brand. And as I'm, you know, positioning myself, whether it's in the community or whether it's in my professional workspace, my brand needs to be continuous. And you should be able to, over time, you know, just as someone said a little earlier, you should see that brand, you know, develop over time. You know, as you really process, you know, who you are and where you want to go, you will either pull down, you know, pull things away from your brand. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to be the burnt hair Michael Jackson from Pepsi. I want to be, you know, the good hair Michael Jackson, you know, from later on. So as you begin to pull away things, as you hope that old pictures that aren't popping up on Google anymore, whatever the case is, die off, you want to make sure that you're really thinking through how you're presenting or preparing your brand. But it's a thought process. And that thought process, I think, is absolutely necessary for people, period.
All right. Thank you for that. Rejena, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I definitely want to chime into that one. So in relations to what Kent stated, this personal strategy, or it could be a personal brand strategy. So I think that it's imperative that you develop a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year roadmap to include your current state, who you are currently, what's your value add currently. And as you develop, skills, credentials, just knowledge that evolves. So you have this roadmap of where do I see myself in 5 years? What is my current value add to the world, so to speak? And then in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, how have I improved and what's my value add at the end of the road? So you have to see yourself as a business. You have to see yourself as the business of you. And I think that sort of creating that roadmap to from where you are to where you're trying to get to, I think that helps to in defining your strategy and helping your brand to evolve to the next level. So it's all about next level, like where you're going, and it's all about what's my end game. So I think that in developing a brand, you start with the end game in mind. Where do I see myself in X amount of time, et cetera? And then you work towards that. And how you do that, re-educate yourself, certify, whatever it is that you do, you're doing it, moving towards that end game. And I think it's very encouraging. Successful businesses all have strategy, business strategy and roadmaps. And I think it's imperative that people as individual develop those same personal types of roadmaps for themselves. And one other thing that I think is really important, so you have friends that you grew up with, family members that know you as who they know you as, and sometimes they try to keep you in a box, and and it may not be facetious, but I think that you have to define what your box is, and not let anyone else define what your box is. And so as you move along that path and move along that roadmap, you're doing that consciously, thinking about your end game in mind, not what they say or what other people think you should be and how you should carry yourself. So that's what I wanted to say.
Awesome, thank you. All right. Would you like to chime in, Jania, or?
Just real quickly, it's just the benefit is that you get an opportunity to leverage your significance in the lives of those who are either wanting to get to know you or wanting to get to buy your product or experience what it is that you're attempting to sell or persuade them on. So that's the benefit of it, is that you get an opportunity, like everyone said, to be able to tell your story and how significant you want that story to be in, the lives of those who are consuming what it is that you're putting out there.
Thank you. All excellent answers. So I'm gathering that a brand is pretty much your namesake. It's you in a sense, in essence. So this brings up this question to my head. So what happens if, say, for instance, you either mess up or in some way or somehow that your brand gets tarnished? Like, what do you do then? How do you bounce back from something like that?
I'm not starting with that one. Y'all go ahead.
Well, I'll say I want to make one slight. Your brand can be you, but it doesn't always have to be you. It can be a product or a service that you're providing, or a company, or, you know, a group, like, you know, the group that is putting this on. It can be, you know, it doesn't have to be an exact person, but it should be an entity that represents a group of people, you know, providing services or, you know, products. And with that being said, you can always, if something doesn't work right, you can always rebrand yourself. There are tons of companies who constantly rebrand themselves. To give you some examples, one of the things that companies will do is they will change their name or a part of their name or a logo. If you look at some of the logos from past, you know, remember, for those of you who've been in Huntsville for a very long time, remember on the Parkway when they had the old McDonald's and it had that old logo. It was like an old guy eating a hamburger. That was like one of the very first logos before like Ronald McDonald and all of those people, where, you know, places like McDonald's, they rebrand all the time. There was an incident that happened in maybe the early 2000, late 1990s, where it was a rumor that got out that they were not, like their chicken nuggets or something, they were made out of pink slime or something like that. Well, they just rebranded that product, and, you know, now they have premium chicken strips, you know, things like that. So even if you feel your brand has suffered, you have an opportunity to rebrand. I hate to say this, but one of the greatest rebranding is from like the Kim Kardashian, you know, with how she initially came out there. People would have thought back in the, you know, the 1980s, early 1990s, someone having an unflattering type of you would have been, you know, like professional suicide. But what she did is that she took that opportunity to use that as a platform. If you think about what happened to Vanessa Williams when she was Miss America, there were some unflattering photos of her and she lost her crown. But you fast forward, you know, 20 years later, and you got somebody like Kim Kardashian, where it wasn't just a photo, it was a video, and she was very happy to, you know, put it out there. So it's about how you if you get into trouble, you have an opportunity to spin that. Nowadays, especially because you know, back in the day, bad news used to be, you know, political suicide, but nowadays that is not the case. As long as you are putting news out there to a certain degree, it is still good business news, because like we spoke about before, people are becoming more interested in your personal stories or your business stories than they are about, you know, your ethics. And I mean, we can see that in, you know, things like the former president. I mean, you know, there are a lot of ethics violations, but he still had an opportunity to be the president of the United States. So, you know, you can definitely spin it and pull yourself out by the bootstraps and make it work in your favor.
Wow. Yeah. That's great, excellent examples, man. Thank you. Appreciate that. Anybody else like to chime in on that one?
I was hoping she was going to say something about Kirk Franklin. I was waiting on Kirk Franklin to come on back and tell me about what Kirk Franklin got to do. He's got a little work to do.
Now, I was gonna say I totally agree with her and everything, but one of the first things you should do, you should recognize it, right? You can't just go and just all of a sudden rebrand yourself and change everything. You got to own up to it. You got to recognize it. You got to, you know, just state, hey, yeah, this happened. Yes, I messed up, or whatever it is. You got to acknowledge it first, and then, you know, say what you're going to do to, you know, change things and stuff. And, you know, you may go away for a month or two, but then that's when you come out with your rebrand and saying, oh, we said we was going to do X, Y, Z. We took that time. That's why we was away for such a amount of time. So now we're back. New brand and everything. And that goes along with, I think, what was that Stanton is saying, how all that falls to each other. And you use that as publicity. Like she was saying, bad news is good news. It's marketing. It gets your name out there. People are known for the bad things they do, which is a terrible thing. But if you can use it to spin it the right way, but first you got to acknowledge it. You got to acknowledge it. Say, here's what I'm going to do, or we're going to do to change it. Go away, come back. Everything's all good. And it is about the story and continuously letting people know. And that's part of your marketing. That's part of your marketing as well and stuff. But you got to acknowledge it, because Google is out there. Stuff is out there on the internet forever. So you just can't ignore it. People will find it and put it back out there, which we see all the time.
Okay, gotcha. So definitely you got to take ownership of your failures and then start to revamp and rebrand yourself. All right.
So
Which leads me to another question, because I know.
my bad. Yeah, I was wondering. The two comments really brought me to I guess another question that I got to answer, that I have to answer for myself. But who's really being honest with me about my brand and those glitches and those mistakes? And kind of when if my brand is off, who am I surrounding myself around who's really actually telling me about that you may want to reconsider? There's been several times that my wife will say, well, you might want to reconsider that post, pull it down, make it, don't make it public, whatever the case is. And it's not anything crazy, but it's just, when you are opinionated about something, that could easily, throw, I guess a monkey wrench in somebody's thought pattern about who you are. And especially if you're putting yourself out there as a conservative, or, just in a conservative fashion, in the event that you say something that is not as conservative, that could really kind of skew something, someone's viewpoint. So, I know that she is my safeguard when it comes down to posts, and I don't have a problem with running things by her. Is this all right? Is this cool? Does this make sense? But it is really about who's being honest about those glitches. I mean, I think that we could talk about several of the, major brands who may have done something that, who may have put out an advertisement who, that was really racially charged, whether that was Timberland or, Versace, or whoever those people were who were putting out things that might have been, that may have not reflected African Americans very well. However, some way, somehow, people are still buying Timberlands. People are still buying these different, they're still going back to these brands that have not necessarily represented, the African American population very well. However, at one point in time, they were able to turn back around, apologize, do what they had to do, and people are right back into the store. So I know that the tarnished brand can be repaired, but it's all about, addressing the honesty and apologizing if you have to, and then recalibrating. So I really like those two statements, and it really caused me to think, well, who's really being honest?
I like what you said, Kent. Making sure you got the right people around you to check you, and not someone just saying, oh yeah, that's right, that's good. You need people really to be honest with you and check you. And you need to have a team of people to do that. I have that outside of work and within work, because you can tarnish your brand within work. So I have several people I pass stuff by and everything, and to keep me in check, to let me know if I'm doing something, saying something that I should not be, and that I need to think twice about.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. Awesome. So that got me thinking about the whole branding and everything. And I think Ms. Brown even mentioned with most brands, you have like a logo or a symbol. Like, is that something you think you necessarily have to have, or can you have a brand without having some type of logo or symbol? Or like, what are your thoughts on that? Should you have a logo or symbol to go to, or to represent your brand, or should it just be you?
I want to chime in. I think it depends on whether or not you're a business, an entity, or you're an individual. And I think that you decide. I don't necessarily have a brand for a business, but in the corporate arena and healthcare, I'm known as I can get billions of dollars into the company, and with my finance background and revenue background, that's what I'm known for. So even prior to being in corporate, I worked with corporate companies and, pretty much on a turnaround basis. So I think that you could develop who you are without a mark or, logo or whatever. And pretty much, it's just indicative of who I am in my personal space. So no nonsense, direct, get it done. And, but I'm humble, I'm, diligent and, and I respect people and, expect to be respected in return. So I think that, values could be what's your value, platform could be who you are as a brand as well. But on the business side of things, I don't see that there's an issue, with having a brand. But I think that, as it comes, we circle back to strategy, the mark or logo or what have you needs to be, I think, not needs to be, should be indicative of your mission, who you see yourself as, and where you see your company going. So I don't think that it is imperative to have one, but I think it's helpful to establish, who you are as an entity and who you are individually.
Yeah, it like depends on what you're trying to do and what you're trying to put out there. And like establishing who you are in your company and all of that is the main thing there. And then if you want that to be easily recognizable, like, we all know when you see different symbols, you see the red circle and the dot, it's Target or whatever. If you want your brand to be easily recognizable, for someone to see that and go, oh, when I see that, I know that's Target. Or if I see this particular symbol, I know I'm getting quality work or whatever it may be. If that's something that you want to have people recognize and to, I guess, equate to who you are as a symbol of that, then yes, it just depends on what you're trying to achieve and what you're doing and your business as well, right? I think a lot of entrepreneurs want to be able to be known by a simple logo because it means some people think, oh, I've made it. Is someone recognize my logo? Not quite, but that's what a lot of us think because that's what we see, right? We see those certain, you see the golden arches. I think Jania, did I say your name right? Was saying about McDonald's and everything. So everyone see the golden arches. You can see it from a distance. I can get me some nice hot fries and stuff. They have a great fries, right? But when you can recognize that particular logo and stuff, people know automatically what they stand for, what you can get from them. But that's still about you yourself building up that brand and understanding it and defining it and making sure everyone knows what it is. And then comes the logo to associate with that. So, it depends on what you're trying to do. You can do the logo to help, set aside to get that quick recognition, or you can do without it and just go with your name or your company name and stuff, which also becomes like a logo in itself, especially if you're the ones who are signing all the checks like Rejena, and everything. She's known for that. So her name itself is her logo and her brand, right? So it just depends on what you're trying to do.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. So with that being said, first you have to, I guess, put your brand out there before necessarily doing a logo. So that way when people see it, they know they're getting quality. So that kind of segues into the whole networking aspect of it. So I guess my next question would be, what is the, I guess, the best way to network and to get your brand out there?
Join BDPA and go to the meetings. I had to speak on that first. Join BDPA and attend the meetings. And you can attend any of the meetings from the various chapters, even the national things that the organization have, and attend the conferences as well, because there's a great group of people you'll be able to network with, not just from corporate professionals, but entrepreneurs as well, students, and everyone you can think of from all different aspects of different professions and everything, and go to the meetings and all of that. But also, besides that, I had to give a plug for that, Jason. I had to give a plug.
Hey, spoken like a true president.
So also, with me saying going to meetings, go to meetups and everything. I know it's been hard and difficult during the pandemic and everything, but people have done virtual ones, join different social media groups, people who are doing something similar to what you're doing, or even if they're not, it may be something that has nothing to do with what you do with, but you still want to be able to get your brand out there and spread it, because you just never know who the other company or organization may know and who they are connected to as well. And then also, for us growing your network, if you're providing a particular service or product, partner with another, entrepreneur company, offer them something for free. And of course, you do it well and stuff, they're gonna, go ahead and recommend you and refer you to others and everything. And then the other thing is just within your own, if you have a side hustle as your, is not your main thing, you still got your, corporate job, a regular job and stuff, still with your peers and co-workers, still network with them as well. Even though John next to you may be getting on your nerve, but you never know who John knows, right? So it's important to make sure you're even networking with, your co-workers and stuff, because they can help. Word of mouth gets out and everything.
All right, thank you, and appreciate that shout out to BDPA. All right, Kent, you want to speak on it?
Sure. Yeah, I was, kind of processing that question. And, first thing that came to my mind was consistency, just being, consistent with your, just with your networking, reaching out, getting out of your shell, getting out of your bubble, and not being afraid to really present yourself and then re-present yourself. So it's just, the management of making sure that if you're really trying to network with someone, I really believe that it's all in that name, net, creating a net, so that as opportunities fall, you might be able to catch it, and you're really working your net. So just really making sure that you are trying to capture opportunities with this widespread net. So the more shallow that I am, or the more fearful that I am of just either dropping a card or just saying hello, or just kind of really and not even really presenting what I do, just making a friend. Now, someone said a little earlier, it's just about building relationships. I think that was Jania. Did I say that right? Jania. Gotcha. And it's just making sure that it's, we are presenting, ourselves well, and then making a friend. So from being able to just establish a relationship with someone, you never know where that might be able to go. And I've seen that time and time again. So again, just kind of really making that net, making a very firm net with all of the things that you can do, and then being able to place that net under people in order to catch opportunities. So it's really a cool idea to really think through, but also something that has to be worked on consistently. Can't just do it, throw something out there one time and think that, you're gonna, reel in a harvest. You won't. There's no work in that. And if it was that easy, everybody would have, a network that was amazing, but it takes work.
All right, thank you for that, Kent.
I would like to chime in on that if I
Um,
can, just quickly.
Go ahead.
I agree with Ken, and I just wanted to, add, I think that, networking should be purposeful and intentional. And what's your objective? What's your purpose for doing it? But then also it's a give and a take. And I think that, going in with the purpose of only taking is, sort of defeats the purpose of networking. I think it should be a give and take. What do you have to give? Time, volunteering, mentoring, and I've kind of learned that over the years that, the more you give, the bigger or wider your network expand. And so I think that for me, sort of saying, I have a lot of younger, folks say, oh, how do I get into X? How do I get into, healthcare? How do I do, whatever. So for me, networking is taking the time to listen to them, to, guide and sometimes mentor, coach or whatever. So it's not just about what you're wanting out of the deal, but also what do you have to offer, and not being afraid to say, hey, I have this to offer, I can volunteer, I can do, this, I can mentor, coach, whatever. And then when you get those opportunities, use it as an opportunity to share, your value add of your brand and what you, but not forcing it on anyone, but just more so. I've landed a lot of huge consulting contracts just for volunteering, for a training or volunteering something, in a large health system or whatever. And they said, oh, well, thanks for doing that. We have this opportunity. So I think that it's you get what you give, and so be more of a giver than a taker. And I think that networking works for you. Will work for you.
All right, awesome. Ms. Brown, would you like to add anything?
I think everyone said, what was going through my head. That's why I was like, yeah. But just to echo one thing that Rejena said is that it's definitely a give and a take. And it's, especially for the people who are here in the Huntsville area, it is very much relationship driven. And, you get into a lot of places by getting to know people and getting to connect with them, whether it's a church connection or, golf buddy or whatever the case may be. You got to get out there. You're not gonna make it just sitting at home. I know all of us have been sitting at home, but there was an opportunity to do stuff even there. As a spoken word artist and a poet, a lot of times I use that as a way to network with people. I've done several, pro bono spoken word pieces. I just did one 2 days ago at the commemoration of the 1 year anniversary of the death of George Floyd. And it would have been easy to say no, because I knew I was going to have to write an original piece, and it was going to be 90 degrees outside. But I said yes, because as the world opens back up, those are going to be people who they're going to need someone to come out and to do some things. So of course I got a few phone calls like, hey, we need you here. You were uplifting. And I'm like, okay, well, I hope that you're lifted enough that you want to pay. So but that happens. It happens a lot. And and then at the end of the day, if I could be a benefit to someone to help lift morale, I mean, people will remember that, as well. We can't forget, like very influential people like Martin Luther King or Malcolm X. I look at it as impact versus income. They were not wealthy people. They didn't have any income, but their impact was so great that, for example, Martin Luther King, every time he went places, people provided for him. He had places to stay and to eat and to sleep. And, resources. And so that was because of the impact that he made around the world. So if you don't have the income to brand like McDonald's or Target or whatever, then you have to create an impact, and that impact will get you just as far as income, especially nowadays with social media, because you don't have to spend a tremendous amount of money to do so. To go back to some of the big name brands, when was the last time you saw a Coca-Cola commercial? When was the last time you really saw a McDonald's commercial? And remember back in the day, they were on every other second. But now they have hearkened to, social media as well, because that's where people are, because we're all on our phones and, looking at Facebook every day. So you can get an opportunity to network that way. It is a relationship. It is a give and a take. And the more you give, normally, you'll get back a return.
Awesome. Thank you. Those are some great responses. All right. So with those, brings up another question. So when you're engaging people with the intent to network, should you have a prepared elevator pitch? I know, Kent, you mentioned this earlier in this session. So I'm going to go ahead and let you speak first on that.
That's no problem. I was listening to the last two pieces, and I'm y'all gonna pray for me, because I'm tired of doing stuff for free. I've been doing stuff for free for so many years, and now I got to turn around and matter of fact, I'm starting to charge stupid prices. So either you're gonna do it, you're gonna pay it, or you're gonna just say, no, never mind, it's okay. But I think that with I'm looking at Ms. Brown's website right now, amazing. And I'm just kind of looking through, I'm trying to catch up with, different people that are on here. This is networking right here. And I'm just saying, what? I'm not doing nothing no more for free. And like I said, and it's not about being rude or whatever the case is, but if I put my time into it, then that means that I am delivering something that is of worth. I'm not going to come out and just deliver some junk. But at the same time, now of course things like this is different. I mean, we're educated, but I'm talking about if you ask me to come and deliver something or prepare something, I'm sorry, just pray for me, please. But as
We
far
gotta pray for you, Kent, because it also should be that feeling of you feel like you're giving back to others as well. Kent, I'm gonna pray for you. But I understand. It's like knowing your self-worth and everything. So
I'm tired. I'm sorry. I'm tired of having to feel bad about the fact that I'm doing something that should be good. I'm sorry. Never mind.
Can I want to say something to you too?
Yeah.
I agree with that. You should, I mean, if it's your business or your brand, you should not do anything you shouldn't do it for free. That sort of brings me to, you need to maybe do more strategy around who are you targeting? I mean, because if they can't afford it, then that shouldn't be your target audience. And so for me, my target, let's just say hypothetically, when I first started with the consulting or whatever, I started like small, maybe more the medical groups and, whatever. And then, I was nickel and dime. Now I only, when I was 10 years into my consulting company, Kaiser Permanente, HCA, the bigger players were my only clients, Cerner Healthcare, large national, So I think that, you have to over time assess or reassess who's your target audience or clients and go from there. And they will pay whatever it is that I could just say hypothetically, and this is not a brag or anything, going from $100 an hour to $600-700 an hour, what I charge for consulting. So you could do it. You just have to reassess who is willing to pay for that value add that you bring to their organization, their company, or what have you. And That's probably what I would say to that. But yeah, you do. There are things that you do for free. I do a lot of things, or have done before the pandemic, with the group in Nashville. Tim Shobe and the group volunteer iGolf. So, sponsor, holes and different things like that. So it's, and you have to balance that too. Where do you want to put your time? Because at the end of the day, it's your time, so where do I want to give, and then who's my target audience, or where do I want to get paid, or how do I want to get paid? So I think that those two things maybe,
That's what I'm talking about. And I want to be where the money is not tight. Is that okay to say? I don't want to be, thank you. If you got to think about that, we'll wait for another time, or whatever the case is. But I really appreciate that. And I appreciate the prayers, because I need every bit of them. Now, when it goes to that elevator speech, at this point in my professional career, I'm able to tailor my speech according to who I'm talking to now. At one point in time, I just needed to have something that was rote, memorized, something that I can quickly kick out, especially if I wanted to be able to get somewhere in the conversation. I remember being able to, one of my favorite presidents, college presidents, is Dr. Rabowski in Maryland at UMBC. Amazing. Freeman Rabowski. He's actually from Alabama, but I'm from Maryland, and I had a chance to meet him at UMBC. Anyway, we were in the elevator, and he just simply asked me who I was. I was able to kick it out very quickly. I told him at that time I was a math teacher. The next portion was not good at all, because he asked me something highly mathematical and stumped me in the elevator. I left the elevator feeling pretty low. Matter of fact, I was dragging. They had to drag me off the elevator. It was just he and I. So a very difficult situation, but I was able to give it to him very quickly so that he could have a response. Now I'm looking to have a conversation with someone and deliver according to who they are. So I need to find out who they are, and then I deliver according to where there might be a happy medium or an intersection, in our two professional careers. So at this point, after doing it for so long, I am able to curtail it or tailor it according to make sure that it creates a conversation, not just that I'm dropping a business card, but I'm actually engaging you in conversation in order to give and get, as what was said a little earlier. So there's an art to it, and I'm a fan of the art that comes along with it.
All right, appreciate that. Felicia, look like you got something on your mind. You wanna speak on that? Like, do you think we should have a prepared elevator pitch, or do you just go off the cuff, when trying to network, or when you have the intentions of engaging with somebody to network?
I think it's important you have one, because you want to make sure you don't miss the main important things that you want people to know about you, and quickly to state that and everything. And then as to when you give it, it's based on the conversation that you're having with that person, right? But it's very important. That's one of the things that we would teach a lot of young adults, and even just regular professionals as well. Even within my company, I teach a lot of the new engineers who come in, even the interns that we have to work. I tell them you need to work on the elevator speech, because you got to network within the company itself. Because people don't realize that you got to network, have your own elevator speech within the company you're in, because it's about relationships as well in the company. As to be able to move, throughout different departments, or to even get promoted and stuff, because a lot of times it's not what you know, but who you know. But it's important to have that. I think it's so important, because a lot of times you'll have someone come up and go, hey, how are you? What do you do? And some people go, oh, well, yeah, and so you're kind of left there sitting there just trying to think about it. And you may leave out some very important detail that may be important, right, for them to know. especially the key highlight of things you want to be known for, because that helps with the first impression that people have of you when you're talking to them and speaking to them, and that's what they're going to remember you as well.
All right, thank you for that. All right, Rejena, did you want to piggyback on that?
I agree, to have that, your elevator pitch. I kind of, my way of looking at it is a me.com. So how do I describe myself in the shortest amount of time based on the audience or the person that I'm talking to? Because there's an opportunity. Sometimes there's, you're talking to you're talking to a CEO, you may say a little things differently than what you would say for someone that maybe is a director. Or so I think that, having, bandwidth in it, the me.com and the elevator pitch sort of will serve you, well, because, and flexibility to sort of flex out the narrative based on your audience. So you always need to know your audience. And if you don't know, sometimes you can't assume. So, just like Kent said, he was put on the spot, you may be put on the spot. So you got to be always ready. So I can go up or I can go down. And for me, I think that, I could, talk to the line staff or people, in the weeds, and I could go board. So I think that just having that flexibility, and I had to learn that over the years, how do I sort of evolve? Because at some point I was, you have apprehension of, oh, how do I talk to these people, but you always have to have confidence in yourself and in that ability that you have and that value add that you bring. So once you have that, it doesn't matter who you're talking to. You just have to sort of have the narrative to speak to them intelligently and convincingly.
All right, thank you for that. So with networking, it seems like you gotta do some form of communication. And public speaking seems to be one of those big things. So I guess my next question would be, like, has public speaking helped building your brand and networking? Yeah, you can go ahead, Ms. Brown.
For me, definitely, because that's pretty much how I think most people know me by, is my, ability to publicly speak. Like I host events, and I'm normally the person, even in my regular day job, that if they need somebody to go and talk to a group of people, then I'm normally one of the people that they call on. But one of the most important things about being comfortable with public speaking is to understand your audience. And I think that's been echoed already, is that if you don't know who, what, why, then most of the time your public speaking efforts turn into failure, and or it'll stop you from attempting to do it in the first place. And I know with the things that I do, like with my writing and spoken word and stuff like that, one of the most important things I always ask is, who am I talking to? Tell me the audience. I don't know how many times someone will tell me, oh, well, it's just oh, they're very diverse, and then you go there and it's like just a group of senior citizens who are church ladies. To me, that's not quite a diverse audience, and I may have had something prepared for a diverse audience. So understanding your audience, understanding what you want to talk about. I feel that you have to be passionate about what you want to talk about to be, to relay a good message. Now, you don't have to always be passionate about the subject matter at hand, but you need to pick something within that to be passionate about. I know in like the technical world that a lot of us work in here in Huntsville, I may not be able to give a complete technical breakdown of, you know, form, fit, and function of something. But if it's something that the process of understanding that can be a passion, you know, I can say, well, hey, I didn't understand it either. But what I did is I went and did research and I found that this person, you know, felt the same way. So because of that, you know, I took an interest in it. And that, you know, people relate to that, because you may, you know, if you ask me to talk about, you know, the theory of relativity, I probably couldn't break that down. But as a person, if I need to speak on it, I can say, well, I had an interest in it. I never thought about it before until Jason asked me. And now, you know, doing this research, I, you know, found out that it came from X, Y, and Z. So when it comes to public speaking, I think a lot of people shy away from it because it can be so, you know, traumatizing to stand there in front of everybody. And even me, I'm finding it was very difficult for me to do the one that I did on Tuesday, because I haven't done one in person in a year and a half. So it was like going back to the beginning. I was like shaking like a leaf up there trying, but I understood my audience. I understood, you know, I was passionate about what I was saying. And I wanted to make sure that I relayed, you know, an idea or a concept that was central to who I am as a person. And I think that's something that you have to do too. If you want to do any type of public speaking about your brand, or if you're trying to, you know, work with someone else and you don't quite understand it, at least put in that human connection, find that connection that you can relate to. And that will help you to get out there and be able to portray it as much as possible. And after you get that connection, you have to do the research. You have to do you know, whatever, if you're going to speak on it, you need to know what you're talking about. Even if you're just talking about your emotions toward it. Why did I have an emotional response to something? You know, is it because of my, you know, of my history? Is it because it's a retrieval cue? Is it something that I thought about when I was a child and now it's rushing back to me? But if I'm speaking to someone, you know, who understands psychology and I'm saying retrieval cue, then they're like, oh, well, she understands that. So those are some things you have to do the research. You have to be prepared. And that preparation sometimes can be very quick. And then if it is very quick, you know, you got your cousin Google in your pocket. So do what you need to do and, you know, contact, you know, your cousin and find out, you know, and your second cousin, Wikipedia, do what you need to do to make sure that you are prepared, you know, when you get ready to do public speaking, and practice. You know, you in the shower, you know, in the car. I know people see me drive all the time. Like, is she talking to herself? No, I'm practicing because I'm having to, you know, I got to speak in front of people. So, you know, practice in the mirror, you know, practice in front of people, get a lot of criticism. I think Kent said it earlier. You got to talk to people who can tell you yes or no. Before I do any spoken word piece, I do it in front of somebody. I'm like, how is this? Is it bad? Is it good? Am I going to get a standing ovation? If people don't understand it and they don't get it, then I scratch it or I come back to it later. Sometimes it's not ready yet. You know, it's not seasoned. And you know how we like seasoning on things, you know, the more seasoned, the better. So sometimes you need to talk to somebody. You need to say, well, does this make sense? Am I rambling on? You know, am I doing too many audible pauses like, and, you know, and what and that, and saying those things that constantly trip you up when you're publicly speaking. So, you know, be prepared, be passionate, and you know, and go out there feeling confident in what you have to say.
All right, thank you for that. Because honestly, what you just said, the whole practicing, I never would have thought to do that myself, to actually practice in a mirror or in front of somebody to try to make yourself more comfortable when you're doing public speaking. So thank you for that one. All right. Anybody else would like to chime in on that?
Last year was my first time doing a TEDx or a TED Talk. And it was probably one of the hardest things that I've ever done, not because there was a whole room of people, because it was during COVID. But it was the fact that you had to memorize everything and you could not, I didn't even have the ability to, you can have slides, but you can't have very many words on the slide. So you've got to memorize your stuff and you have to stay within the time frames. So that experience really stretched me more than I've ever been stretched as far as public speaking. I've spoken before hundreds. That's not a problem. I don't mind that, but it's just the preparation that I had to do for that one has now elevated my preparation for everything else. So I really, appreciate just what was said about just being prepared, because now I really have to remain prepared um, and to make sure, and kind of goes back to that brand thing. I don't want to be caught wrong either. So, I want to make sure that my delivery, my information is correct, that if you're going to fact check me, that you're going to fact check and you're going to find the right stuff. So it's all of those things, but also accepting as many times or as many offerings as possible. The more that I'm out in front of people, the more that I, again, get out of that shell and out of that box, it becomes easier and easier. And I feel more and more comfortable. But for those who are just kind of, here and there, I can imagine, it being a pretty anxious experience. So, but being able to trying to do something that is outside of your comfort zone, outside of your sphere, is only going to enlarge your ability to deliver on a higher level. So I was very, very thankful for that, and I look forward to doing that again. I look forward to doing it again, just simply because I know how hard it was the first time. I want to experience it again on a greater stage, so that I know that I can actually deliver in that fashion. So doing it more is going to be very important.
All right, thank you for that. So I know Jania gave an example, say for instance, practicing in front of a mirror and everything like that. But do you guys have any more tips for people who are like introverts when it comes to public speaking, or is there anything else that they can probably possibly do to, I guess, be comfortable and get out that shell?
That's very interesting. I used to teach an introvert extrovert class at my previous company and corporation. So I do understand what it takes for them. And the majority of my teams are all introverts. A lot of technical people are very introverted. And I am an extreme extrovert, very extreme. So I've been holding back a lot here. I hold back a lot at work because I know I can drain other people of their energy. But for introverts, and when it comes to, you speaking up or being around others, you yourself, you have to prepare yourself, because that's one of the things. You got to be prepared and know that I gotta go do this stuff. It's like ramping yourself up, right? Because you got to be on, and you're not used to being on like that. And you can only be on for a certain length of time before it drains you and everything. And it becomes such a chore and all of that. But I will say, to make sure you plan stuff out accordingly. If you know that day you're going to go and speak somewhere, or be networking or something, you need to save up that energy. So maybe earlier that day, you may work on stuff by yourself where you're not involved with a bunch of other people, because you know you're going to need all that energy for later, right? And then also just a lot of introverts love to know stuff ahead of time so they can digest it and then be able to interact and have good discussion at that time. But a lot of times you don't have that, right? You never know what someone's going to say and what they're going to bring up and everything. But just be prepared to just be able to know who you are, what you're doing, and what you're delivering, and what you're bringing to the table, so you can be able to just talk from that perspective and everything. And then when you're done, and you're done, have a great way of exiting, of being able to say, hey, it was great meeting you. I need to go ahead and go right now, or I have some other things I need to take care of. Find a way where you can gracefully exit from that place, because a lot of times introverts, if you don't have a graceful exit, people go, oh, they was rude, they just left. Or, it may come off that way, but it's not intended, because people don't know if you're an introvert or not. They don't know, they have no idea. But be prepared to have a graceful exit on things when it's getting too much for you, so you can go somewhere and recharge, let everything down and stuff, right? But you still have to be out there, especially when you're talking about your brand, even if you're an entrepreneur, if you're trying to get your business out there, if it's just you, or if it is just you, come up with the different things you can do. Or you may partner with someone. If they're the person who can do all the speaking and do all that stuff for you to help grow that out, lean on them, rely on them for that. You may be the person behind the scenes with all the ideas and stuff, but you're not the person to get in front of everyone. That is like that with the company I work with, the two co-founders. One is more outgoing, even though both are introverts. One is a little more outgoing than the other. So he's more the face of the company versus the other, and it works out well and stuff. So you just have to have a plan. As an introvert, you got to have a plan to use your energy wisely, when to use it, when to bow out gracefully, to recharge and everything.
All right,
I
thank you
was
for
gonna
that.
say one of the tricks for public speaking, especially like how Kent said that he had to do it where you can't use notes and stuff, is when you get ready to practice in like a room that you're very familiar with and very comfortable with. So like, let's say if your living room is a place that you sit at all the time, then when you practice, look at different segments of your room. So like start on the right hand side, go to the middle, the corner, and then beside you, and then you're the ending. And so it's kind of like a little clock, I'll say that. So when you're practicing and you're talking about the beginning, let's say that your speech has 5 points, right? So point number 1 is going to be the corner to your right hand side. If you're talking and you're looking at that corner and you're looking at the things that remind you of that corner, then when you get out there and you're trying to make point number 1, it's okay to turn like you're talking in this direction, because in your mind, you're just thinking about that corner that you know very well. And that's a retrieval cue. That's something that helps you to retain some information because you're thinking about that particular point in your house. And then you get to point number 2. Number 2 may be what's straight ahead of you. And, and then you're thinking about yourself. And so those are some quick little things that you can do, is to sit someplace that and make sure it's like a room that very, very well, that from memory, that if you lost your sight today and you have to walk in there, you can tell somebody, okay, I know that my grandmama's picture's on the wall over here. I know that this is my fireplace over here. I know that this was my wedding, photos over here. And then you think about those things in your head, and those become points to help you to remember things. And it also makes you comfortable, because if you're looking and you're just thinking about, the picture of your grandmother, then that's a comfortable place for you to be. If you're imagining yourself being in that particular room, then those are comfortable places for you to be. So that normally will bring down, bring down your blood pressure, bring down your anxiety. I know that I do a lot of breathing techniques before I speak. I make sure I take a lot of deep breaths, in through the nose, out through the mouth, to calm my nerves when I'm going up there. I totally cut off a certain space right before I do something. Like if someone's trying to talk to me, no, you have to kind of cut that off, so that when you get ready to go up there, then you're ready to deliver the information, because people will throw your energy off before you go up there. Somebody will want to come and tell you something that you didn't want to hear, and it would totally throw your energy off. Another thing that you have to make sure that you do, if you're going to do public speaking is you have to have a cutoff point that you stop practicing the information. Because what happens is, especially if you're memorizing it, every time you see something, every time your eyes, as soon as you open up your eyes in the morning, your brain is recording everything that you see and you hear and you feel that day. So whenever you're memorizing things and you're adding, sometimes you're adding things and taking things away. Sometimes your inflections change on certain things. Sometimes, you take it off. And so if you practice like all day long beforehand, and then you get up there and you're still going over it, 2 minutes before it's time to go out there, then what you're doing is you're constantly adding and taking away, because your brain is feeding on everything around you. So you got to have a cutoff period. Like normally I'll cut off 30 minutes before I have to speak. I'll stop practicing it, so that when I get up there to deliver it, then it is as close to, I'm not changing something based on the circumstances that I'm in right now. So you have to kind of have that cutoff, and it stops the anxiety. Like it really, really does. Like you just have to have a moment to chill. And then if if you're not in a professional setting per se, or if you're in a very casual professional setting, make sure that you're hydrated, don't go all day without eating. People get nervous. I do that a lot. Like the day I have to speak, it's hard for me to eat because I'm so nervous. So, but make sure that you're taking care of yourself, so that when you get up there that you're, a lot of people pass out because they don't eat or drink because they're so nervous of what's going to happen. So you have to make sure you've taken care of yourself. You're ready, you're prepared. And like I said, you can practice. There are several techniques that if you just Google them or YouTube them, they can give you some good, ways to help you to, overcome that.
All right, awesome. Those are some excellent points. Rejena, you got anything before I move on to the next question? All right, cool. So I got about 2 more questions I'm gonna ask you guys. Here's the first question. So I know everybody, is pretty much working, has a job. So how can you be consistent in growing your brand and your network even while working a full-time demanding job?
Say that one more time, John.
I said, how can you be consistent in growing your brand or your network when you're working a full-time demanding job, like a job that you got to be in, day out, like your mind constantly going, even when you outside of work, you're thinking about tomorrow I got to do this, that, and such. So how do you grow your brand and networking when you have a full-time demanding job?
I can start. So I think again, strategy. So I think a side hustle strategy, put that together, that is the business side of it. How do I grow it? That roadmap, that's, you have the personal one. And if you are doing a side hustle, so to speak, you have one for the side hustle too. And I think that you have to dedicate time to it, just as you dedicate time to your job. So I think that you look at, your responsibilities and say, okay, at the end of the day, I have, an hour and a half, 2 hours or whatever to dedicate to, focusing on the side hustle. And you do that. But that's not to say that during the day, if something came up, you can't, address it, or that's relative to this, your side hustle or side gig, or what have you. I think that you have to have a strategy. So, and I think that if you develop sometimes we tend to just freestyle, I'll get to it or I'll do that. But I think that the most successful people I know, and I mean, and others could think differently, are the people who have a strategy. They're purposeful. They're thinking things through, they give the time needed in order to grow. I mean, because you can't, think you're going to grow a garden of tulips if you don't nurture, and soil and water the, plants, etc. So just as you do that with anything, your body, you have to feed your body, nourish your body. You need to do that with whatever it is that you're doing. So if it's a side hustle, I think that, you got the 40, 50 hours, sometimes 60 of your work that you have to say, okay, here is my allotted time to sort of focus on that. And you need to be consistent with it. So unless there's some act of, I don't want to say the word, that you can't dedicate it, you have to redirect yourself at the point that you get the time to and focus on it. Maybe you take, an hour or so away from something else in order to redirect and dedicate to your side hustle. So I think it's strategy, definitely, being purposeful about growing that, side hustle or whatever, and allotting the time to, nurture what it is. So if you have the strategy and your strategy is in 18 months, I'm out of corporate, I'm done with the job, you definitely need to focus on how much time do you allot to getting you to have that, exit, in which I call like your exit strategy. What's your exit strategy from that job if that's your intention? Some people want to stay doing both, but if your job is to move towards your, your brand or your side hustle or whatever, you need to develop an exit strategy, but you also need to allot time to nurture and develop that business. So that brand.
I agree. It's you got to have the strategy and plan, and then execute on it. And because it's your side hustle, it's not your main hustle, because you still got to have the other monies coming in. But dedicating that time, like she was saying, dedicating that time, and give yourself timelines and deadlines, like they do at work, and that happens. Like, there's a project that has to be delivered in 6 months. What do? You plan it out, you back it up, and you make sure you're able to do it. You set out all the tasks and put how long it's going to take to do each one. You got to do that same thing with your side hustle to make sure it happens. You got to be dedicated and driven to do it, especially if you want that to be your main hustle versus your side hustle anymore. You just got to make that time. You put in 60 hours, you got to put in more for your side hustle. You just got to do it. Just got to.
All right. Thank you.
I was gonna say, I totally agree with that. Like, you have to and utilize your time. I know several filmmakers who they wake up early in the morning time, and screenwriters, they write, at the very beginning of their day, so that they can get that thought out. Everything they've been dreaming about the night before, they get it out. I think monopolize on the time that you have, instead of calling your girlfriend or whatever and gossiping on the way to work. Then you can be making some business calls on the way to work. When you're on your lunch break, you can be doing things on your lunch break. If you're on social media, and I'm so guilty of not utilizing it as much as possible, but I do know people who their social media pages, they come across as personal pages, but they're in actuality business pages. So they're constantly posting things about themselves, but they do it in a way that is business driven. Photographers are great at that. I know a photographer that's what he does, is he makes sure that he's posting pictures of, even if it's an old picture of his parents, then there's a caption like, "Oh, I would like to recreate this." And then if you think about it, if somebody's looking at that, they're like, "Oh man, I wouldn't mind recreating, a picture with my brothers and sisters." And so if people start to comment on that, then he's like, "Oh, well, okay, well, let's do it. Let's set it up. Let's recreate it." So you can use your social media pages in a way that they come across, because if you have a personal social media page and you start to come across to business, like, it turns people off, because they look at like, "Oh, what are you selling now?" But there's a very strategic way, again, strategy, that you could use your social media pages to come across as, personal, but they really are, driven toward your business. Ask questions. Don't just post stuff. Ask them, well, if you're selling cakes, well, I tried this, pound cake. What do you guys think about this? What do you think about, strawberry cake? Knowing full well that you're planning on selling strawberry cake, but you're just trying to get them engaged in what you're doing. So if you're spending your time, if you're spending 6 hours a day or 5 hours, whatever the norm is on social media, use that time, effectively. You're not, just don't be on there just scrolling, just looking at different people's things. Be on there, networking with people, be on there putting out stuff. And like I said, do it in a way that that makes sense. If you're going to post pictures of yourself, don't just be posting like, car pictures, selfie car pictures, unless you're trying to sell some tint. If you're selling 10, if you do 10 on people's cars, then don't just be sitting in your car doing that. Like, let it be intentional and impactful. I know a lot of women that love to take photos and we look cute. Unless you're selling lashes, don't just post pictures of just your, of you with just your face, unless you're doing makeup and selling lashes, unless there's a reason behind it. And you do have to, and use that, you can use those things to build towards something. Like, if you're trying to drop something, if you have something you want people to buy, then there's nothing wrong with, using that as a platform. I don't, like, for example, the glasses that I have on, this is really because I'm on the computer every day. I don't have to wear them for prescription, but they're blue light glasses to reduce eye strain. But I have a girlfriend who was like, oh, well, I didn't know you wore glasses and now I see you wear them. Can you be a brand ambassador for me? Because I want to take a few pictures of you with your glasses on. And I'm like, okay, well, let's negotiate, let's talk about, okay, I'll do it for you, but how does that work out for me, financially, going back to what Kent said, quit doing everything for free. So, those are some things that, if you want to do that, then just be impactful, be strategic, make sure you put everything on there. I stopped putting a lot of personal opinions on there and sharing a lot of memes unless it, if they mean something, because people, unless you're a comedian, then don't put a lot of funny stuff, because people start to, that's how they take you. If you're going to put things on there that you're showing more of yourself than you normally would, unless you were selling bikinis and stuff like that, then be impactful with it. So you can make the time. It's just like anything in life, whatever you love, whatever you feel passionate about, you make the time for it. If you want something bad enough, I'm not going to tell you how many times that I saw the, the hot sign on for Krispy Kreme, and I have cut through traffic because I was passionate about getting those hot donuts at the time. So I made, if that mean I got to cut an old lady off trying to turn right, you got to do what you got to do to get what you want. And that's what it boils down to is, if you want it bad enough, then you do what you have to do to make it happen.
And I'm going to say, I love that. And I'm going to say, you can use a great little all-in-one marketing platform tool called Mailchimp. Yes, a shameless plug for my company that can help with that, because it does everything. It's an all-in-one marketing platform. You can schedule stuff ahead of time. So if you're getting off work at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, it can easily help you build out what you're trying to do, schedule it for the next day or whatever time, all the social media stuff all together. Also, we just launched our whole e-commerce. So if you have a store, you can set up a store within, along the website and all the other stuff and everything. So check out Mailchimp.com. But also, second thing, I have those same glasses, came 2-pack, order from Amazon. Yep, I got those. So yeah.
That's what's up. Now, you all both touched on something as well. All three of you, when I really kind of restructured my thinking about work, and this is not my full time. My full time is really at home. My full time is what I do. I'm just here part time, but everything else is about, is really about me. It's about my rest. It's about, me being able to make the appropriate connections, things of that nature. So I found myself, I have not worked this many hours in my life at a job or at a, in any occupation. I love it. I love what I do. However, when I leave here, my statement is I'm going to my full-time now. And it really is my full-time job. I'm full-time me. I'm just part-time here in this occupation or in this position. And I had to restructure how I'm thinking about it, because just for mental health purposes, period. I don't want my brain to begin to think that, wait a minute, this is what I do and this is who I am. It's just what I do for a period of time of the day. But when I get home, it's all about these boys. It's all about my wife. It's all about reading something. Let me consume something. Let me put something in my brain so I can have something to regurgitate at a different time. But I really had to restructure how I thought. And really what it has done is rewired how I even process my day. I'm up earlier because I'm trying to get to my part-time job in order to be successful and get off on time so that I can have my free time for myself. I'm just trying to really reevaluate. I'm getting older now. I'm getting older. I can't keep doing things the same way that I've been doing. And as I'm leaving work, I'm happy leaving work. I'm happy to come, but I'm also happy to go. And I need to be able to make sure that I keep it in perspective, because truly that I don't necessarily build myself up here. I build up everybody that I serve, all the students, administration. I'm wanting to build the mission. I want to be a part of the mission, right? But my own mission can't coincide most times with the mission that's here. So I try my best to keep my mind focused on what is. And I know that I'm going to be a constant, and I know I'm not always going to be here. And if I am, I just don't want to be a dinosaur stuck in this, in this office. I really want to be able to go and flourish. So this is just my part-time.
All right. Thank you guys for that. So what I've gathered from that, you need to kind of restructure the way you think about things, and also make sure you have some type of strategy or come up with a strategic plan, and also do some time management. So yeah, great points, guys.
Have a great tool
All
like
right.
MailChimp
And have a great tool
with your
like Mailchimp.
marketing.
There you go. There you
No,
go.
seriously, check it out. Seriously.
Definitely will. All right. So, our last question for the night. So, if you could sum up the importance of networking and branding in just one word, what would it be and why? Uh, Rejena, let's start with you.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to jump off because I have a flight out of Seattle. So I think intentional is the word, and I use that word because I think that it's best to always have a reason or a purpose. And I think for networking and or what's your intentions? What are you looking to gain? What are you looking to achieve? How are you looking to grow from networking, et cetera? So I think have an intention and be intentional is probably that's 2 words, but I think that is probably my word, intentional. There should be a purpose to what you do, just being purposeful.
All right. Well, thank you, Rejena. I want to thank you for actually being one of our panelists. I really enjoyed your responses, and we wish you a safe flight on your way. All right.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. All right. Let's go to Felicia. And also, when you're after you give your response, if you have any final thoughts, go ahead and adjust those as well.
So my word is hyphenated. So it's considered one word because it's all together. You can't have it. And it's level up, right? So you just want to level up. You want to keep going, achieving higher, And that's important and everything. So basically level up. But what my final thoughts and everything is, you know, a lot of great information came out of all the different panelists. Hopefully the main takeaway that everyone got out of this is you have to be able to know who you are, and be able to define that brand and everything. So, you know who you are, where you're trying to go, what you're trying to do to be able to define your brand.
All right. Thank you for that. All right. Jania.
I'm going to go back to my original. The very first thing I said is about relationships. Um, Everything is built off of relationships, and I know that's kind of coming from, you know, some of my own background, but you know, societies are built off of, you know, a collection of families. Like everything starts with, you know, an Adam and an Eve to a certain degree, and that begets children, and that begets a, you know, a household, that begets a community, that begets a, you know, a neighborhood, that begets, you know, a city, you know, or a town, a city, a country, on and on and on. And so everything that we do in life is centered around relationships. You know, no matter what you look at, if you look at things scientifically, a mathematical equation is a relationship between, you know, numbers to a certain degree. You know, how do they relate to each other? Are they adding to each other? Are they taking away from each other? Are they multiplying each other? Are they dividing each other? You know, everything is relationship driven. How you relate, or how people relate to you, determines how they support your brand. How you relate to yourself determines how you push your brand. If you tell yourself things like, oh, I'm a procrastinator, all I do is procrastinate, then guess what you're going to do? You're going to just procrastinate, because that's what you do. You give yourself permission to do that. You know, if you develop healthy relationships within yourself, within your households, if you don't have a household, if you build it within your friendships, if you build it within your coworkers and your business, if you bring a level of ethics to it, then people will respond to that. I know that the vast majority of the people who are going to support your brand, you know, initially are going to be the people who care about you. I mean, the very first book I wrote, you know, the first few copies went to my mama and, you know, like my cousins or sisters or somebody. So that's how, you know, relationships are pivotal, you know, and people don't really understand how important they are. They don't understand how important it is to be able to have, you know, very established relationships. And businesses are relationships. How do you relate to something? Like, there's no business that is not related to another one in some shape, form, or fashion. Like, you cannot have a business where you're writing on a piece of paper without having some relationship with where paper comes from, you know. So it's something that's there. Everything has some relationship value to it, and you have to be able to work on having firm relationships. And I go back to say that before you can have great business ethic, you need to have great personal ethic. You know, if you need to, if you have problems with maintaining great relationships in your personal life, then you're probably going to have problems having great relationships in your, you know, in your professional life as well. How many people do we work with who bring in their personal problems into the job and take that out on everybody? And how do we relate to that person? We don't like them. And that's just how it is. So, I'm just going to say that, you know, to sum it all up, you know, really work on your relationships. And if you don't know how to work on relationships, then look for people who are relationship coaches. You know, I've coached plenty churches and all other couples and everything. And most of the time when they're not successful at something, that's because they're unsuccessful with something else. And a lot of it, human beings, you cannot take away from the fact that, we're just not one-dimensional creatures, that everything that we do in life affects, our professional life, that it affects our personal life. I mean, not to bring up, something bad like this, but, look at what even though Bill Gates and Melinda Gates are going to be perfectly fine financially, but an inappropriate relationship at a job affected his personal relationship, and that in turn, moved back over to his professional life. Now, like I said, they're going to be more than well taken care of financially, especially Melinda, since I don't think there's a prenup. But at the end of the day, it could have a bearing on how people look at products and stuff that Bill Gates that he's trying to sell in the future. So really work on your relationship building. And that's the end of my rant.
All right. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And just by the way, Felicia, if you want to drop maybe the website to Mailchimp, and Jania, if you want to put where we can possibly purchase your books or things that you've written, you can just throw it in the chat, for everyone to have access to. All right, Mr. Ballard.
Hey, well, first I want to start off by saying thank y'all so much for just being able to, for allowing me to just hang out with y'all for a little bit. It has been a very, very enlightening evening. It's been a lot of fun, and I walk away smarter. So it's a win-win-win. My word is going to be consciousness. Being able to be more conscious about who you are and how you deliver your information really wraps back around to your brand. It's pretty much. It again goes back to what I was saying a little earlier, the handshake, the, being able to make the appropriate first impression, being able to deliver well, being very confident in, who you are. It's just being able to pause and really think about what you are presenting. It's something that I talk to students about. It's definitely something that I, talk to my children about, just wanting to make sure that they are really thinking about what they are presenting to their classmates and things of that nature, not to make them overly conscious or anxious about how they're presenting themselves, but just wanting to make sure that that as they are leaving the home, they recognize that they're representing me. I represent them when I'm away, so on and so forth. So it's just being conscious and being mindful reproduction of self, mindful thought patterns. So that's my word. My final pitch is there's a lot of great things happening in Drake State Community and Technical College. And I would love for you all to really take some time to look to see what is going on. I am very proud of where the school is moving. If you have family members and things of that nature, folks that you're working with, any ways that we may be able to move the community forward, whether it be in anything technical, or in general education, or if you know someone that needs to get their GED or is very close to graduating high school and really wants to be able to upskill and take the next step up. Drake has a lot of options, and I'm really here to support Dr. Sims's vision, Dr. Patricia Sims, and Dr. Carolyn Henderson and Dr. Nicole Bell. These deans and the president, really do well. So I'm very proud to be here, but I would love to, assist your family members, your friends, and get into their next roles as well. So thank you again for just allowing me to hang out.
All right, awesome. So on behalf of BDPA Huntsville chapter, I would like to personally thank each and every one of you for being our panelists. You guys did exceptionally well, like dropping off these nuggets of wisdom, because I personally got something, I've taken away something from each and every one of you and plan on applying it in my life. So thank you for that. Thank you guys. I'm gonna turn it over to Stetton, and he's gonna give our closing remarks. Stetton, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Greer. You did very, very well moderating this level up event. I guess, so Felicia, you have to forgive me. I didn't realize who you were at first. So now After halfway through, I realized, oh, that's Felicia, the Atlanta chapter. I apologize. So, so we appreciate all our panelists for joining us. Some of you I know personally, and some of you have learned over this event, and it was a spectacular event, spectacular discussion. You guys brought some unique knowledge to the table. Very, very informative and well passionate about the topic of growing your brand. We really appreciate you guys sharing that with our members and our interested parties. We've learned a lot about building our brand from you guys, and going through some of it. Why is the brand so important? The brand is so important because it marks who you are, and it shows who you want to build to your public. It markets your initial outlook, your first impression to your self and your company. We also learn from you guys that a brand is not just you. A brand can be someone else, or it can also be the company itself. We learned from you guys that how to build the network, establishing your own footprint, establishing your own marketing presence, the publicity, what happens when your network or brand is tarnished, and how to turn that around, or utilizing that tarnished brand as your true brand, for instance, to kind of reword it a little bit with some of the knowledge. And you guys did a great kind of sum up already, but we also asked if you could sum up the importance of networking and branding in one word, what would it be? You guys gave some very interesting words. One being intentional, level up, relationships, and consciousness. We had a very spectacular discussion about the introverted change in building your brand. How do you build your brand as an introvert? And public speaking also, giving some of those tips. Something that would personally help me, because as you see, I'm an introvert, but a lot of strategies around building your brand as the secondary to your 9 to 5. What we identified as what is your true part-time? When you have a very demanding job, how do you still build your network, your brand, your publicity, your marketing? And I can relate to that Krispy Kreme, because I'm Krispy Kreme physique over here. So, so we got to do that Krispy Kreme one of these days, too, matter of fact. But I got a Hotlight app, man. Anyway, so so a lot of it relating to being very personal. And like you said, know your market, know your audience, know who you want to target. Focus on who you want to target and who you want to build to. Another thing that we learned also was your job could definitely be your market, and identifying what that market is within your job. It could be your boss, it could be your coworkers. Even though you don't like Bill from accounting, it may be a reason that you have to talk to him that could build your brand and build your market. So a lot of key nuggets that identify not only in building your brand from a entrepreneurial business standpoint, but from a professional, how to build to the next step in your career. So we really, really do appreciate the conversation and discussion. And you guys look very comfortable and very focused in what we do here and what you do here. Another tidbit also that we want to add is that our next Level Up event is the last Thursday of this month, and we invite you all to come back and to participate in some form or fashion. And we thank you for the discussion. And
All right. So thank you, Steadon, for the summary. Thank you to all of our panelists for all of your insights. Thank you, John, for doing an awesome job moderating. And on that note, we will conclude this session of Level Up. Like Steadon said, our next event will be June 27th. And that one will be focused on leadership. So we thank you all for joining us tonight. If all the panelists and moderators can stay back so we can have a quick follow-up, that'll be greatly appreciated. So everybody have a great night and thank you. And to find out more about BDPA, go to bdpa.org. To find out more about what the Huntsville chapter is doing, is bdpahsv.org. That's bdpahsv.org. Thank you all and have a great night.